Standing on Amanda's front porch at 7:30 Christmas morning, I balanced 3 carefully wrapped presents while adjusting my coat against the December chill. The doorbell echoed through her suburban home, and I could hear my twin nieces giggling somewhere inside. When Amanda finally opened the door, her face twisted into disgust the moment she saw me. "You're not wanted here, stay outside," she snapped, blocking the entrance with her body. Before I could respond, Mom's voice carried from the living room. "Don't wreck the holiday, Cornelius." I simply smiled, pulled out my phone, and took a photo of the rejected gifts. Walking back to my car with measured steps, I sat behind the wheel and began making calls that would change everything forever. The first call went to First National Bank. "This is Cornelius Mitchell. I need to remove my name as co-signer from account number 7492. The representative asked if I was certain, and I confirmed while watching Amanda's house through my windshield. Next came the auto loan company, then the insurance broker, followed by the utility companies. Each conversation lasted less than 3 minutes, but together they dismantled 8 years of financial support that had kept my sister's family living comfortably in their 4-bedroom colonial home. As I drove through the empty Christmas morning streets, memories flooded back of how this arrangement started. Amanda had been 25 when her husband Derek abandoned her, and the twins leaving behind nothing but debt and broken promises. I was just starting my tech consulting firm, working 18-hour days to build something from nothing. When Amanda called crying about foreclosure, I didn't hesitate to co-sign her mortgage. When she needed a reliable car to get to her part-time job, I guaranteed the loan. When the twins needed to stay in their excellent school district, I covered the difference in rent when she moved to the better neighborhood. Year after year, my business grew, while Amanda's financial dependence deepened. She managed a small boutique clothing store, earning enough to cover groceries and basic expenses, but everything substantial carried my signature on the paperwork. Her house payment, car insurance, health coverage, for the girls their private school tuition, even the family cell phone plan, all traced back to my accounts. I had become the invisible foundation supporting their entire lifestyle, yet Amanda introduced me to her friends as her little brother who still hadn't figured out life. The irony was crushing. While Amanda posted social media photos of family vacations I had indirectly funded, she made sure I knew I was an outsider looking in. Holiday gatherings always involved subtle hints that I should leave, early suggestions that I was imposing, and eye rolls when I tried engaging with my nieces. But I tolerated it because I believed family meant sacrificing for each other, even when the sacrifice was one-sided. By the time I finished the 7th phone call, every financial thread connecting me to their comfortable existence had been severed. The automated systems confirmed each cancellation with mechanical efficiency. Account terminated, co-signer removed, coverage discontinued, authorization revoked. The words felt like declarations of independence, freeing me from a relationship that had only flowed in one direction. I turned the car toward downtown, where my own Christmas celebration waited at the community center. For 3 years running, I had volunteered Christmas morning feeding homeless families, finding more genuine warmth among strangers than I ever felt at Amanda's table. This year, I wouldn't be rushing through breakfast service to make it to her house by 8. This year, I could actually stay and enjoy conversations with people who appreciated kindness without expecting it as tribute. The radio played soft Christmas carols as I drove, and for the first time in years, I felt truly peaceful on Christmas morning. No anxious wondering if my gifts would be well received, no mental calculations about upcoming bills Amanda would need help covering, no dreading the moment when she would find some excuse to suggest my visit had lasted too long. Just freedom spreading through my chest like warmth from a fireplace. By 2 in the afternoon, I was serving second helpings of turkey to the Rodriguez family when my phone buzzed with the first panicked text from Amanda. "Neil, why is my card not working at the store? Call me now." I glanced at the message and silently handed another plate to Mr. Rodriguez, who had been telling me about his job search. 10 minutes later, another text arrived. My car won't start, and some company called about repossession. What's happening? The community center buzzed with conversation and laughter as volunteers cleaned up from the meal service. I helped stack chairs and wipe down tables, checking my phone occasionally, as the messages from Amanda grew more frantic. Her third text came at 2:45. Mom's having a panic attack and the power company called about disconnecting service. Where are you? I finished loading the industrial dishwasher and grabbed my coat, deciding it was time to visit Harold next door. At 83, Harold had been Amanda's neighbor for 6 years and had become my unofficial spy in enemy territory, though he didn't know it. Harold genuinely enjoyed our conversations about gardening and old movies, but he also had a front row seat to Amanda's daily drama and somehow always ended up telling me about it. Harold's small ranch house sat directly beside Amanda's property, separated by a chain-link fence and 20 feet of grass. He answered the door wearing his usual Christmas sweater, a red monstrosity with dancing reindeer that his late wife had knitted decades earlier. "Cornelius, my boy, Merry Christmas. Come in, come in. You missed quite the show this afternoon." His living room smelled like cinnamon and coffee, and Harold gestured for me to sit in the worn leather recliner that faced his picture window. From this chair, Harold had an unobstructed view of Amanda's driveway and front yard, better than any reality television show. "Your sister had herself a real Christmas meltdown." He began settling into his own chair with a cup of coffee. "Saw her stomping around the yard about an hour ago, yelling into her phone about bills and banks and such." But Harold's next revelation hit like a sledgehammer to my chest. "You know, Cornelius, I've been meaning to talk to you about something that's been bothering me. Last month when the church ladies came collecting donations for struggling families, your sister told them quite a story about you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of story?" Harold looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee mug. "Well, she said you were going through hard times, couldn't keep a job, had some gambling problems that got out of hand. Asked them to pray for her because supporting you financially was putting strain on her budget." He paused, studying my face. "Now, I know that doesn't sound right because I've seen you driving that nice truck and wearing good clothes. Plus, Amanda's always posting pictures of vacations and new furniture on that Facebook thing my granddaughter set up for me." The room felt like it was spinning. "She told the church ladies I had gambling problems. That's not even the worst part, son." Harold pulled out his tablet, one of those large screen devices designed for seniors. "My granddaughter helps me keep up with social media so I can see pictures of the grandkids. But I accidentally saw some posts your sister made in a group for single mothers." He handed me the tablet, and I stared at the screen in disbelief. There was Amanda's profile with 3 posts from the past month. The first showed a photo of her at the grocery store with an empty wallet captioned, "Another week stretching every dollar because I'm supporting my brother through his rough patch." Being a single mom is hard enough without taking care of a grown man, but family is family, prayers appreciated. The second post was worse. A picture of her car, with a small dent with the caption, "Had to cancel the girls' gymnastics classes again because my brother needed help with his debt payments." Sometimes I wonder if enabling him is actually helping, but I can't watch families suffer. Anyone else dealing with adults, siblings who never learned responsibility? The third post made my hands shake. It was a photo of my nieces looking sad with the caption, "Explain to the girls why we can't afford our family vacation this year." It's heartbreaking when children pay the price for adult mistakes. My brother's gambling addiction has cost our family so much, but I keep hoping he'll get the help he needs. Please keep him in your prayers. Each post had dozens of comments offering sympathy prayer and even monetary help. Women were praising Amanda for her selflessness, calling her a saint for supporting her troubled brother. Several offered to babysit the twins for free so Amanda could work extra hours. One woman even mentioned organizing a meal train to help the family through these difficult times. I handed the tablet back to Harold with trembling hands. "None of that is true. I don't gamble, I don't need financial support, and I certainly never asked her for money." Harold nodded grimly. "I figured as much. In 6 years of living next door, I've never seen anything that would suggest you had problems. But I've seen plenty that suggest your sister likes being the center of attention, especially when it comes with sympathy and help from others. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Amanda. Neil, I don't understand what's happening, but we need you to come over right now. Everything is falling apart, and Mom thinks we should call the police about identity theft. I looked at Harold, this kind old man who had inadvertently revealed the true scope of my sister's deception. Harold, would you mind if I asked you to keep track of anything unusual you notice next door over the next few days? I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting. He chuckled and tapped the side of his nose. Son, I've been watching neighborhood drama for 8 decades. This old bird doesn't miss much. The next morning, I sat in Jake Morrison's office at First National Bank, where he served as a senior loan officer and had been my friend since college. Jake had called me at 6 in the morning with an urgent request to meet, claiming he had discovered something about Amanda's financial activities that I needed to see immediately. His corner office overlooked Main Street, where early commuters hurried through the post-Christmas winter morning. Neil. I've been losing sleep over this since yesterday. Jake began pulling out a thick file folder. When you called to remove your name from those accounts, I decided to do some digging into your family's banking history. What I found made me sick to my stomach. He spread several documents across his mahogany desk, each one bearing official bank letterhead and Amanda's signature. 3 months ago, your sister applied for a personal loan for $25,000. Look at the application. I leaned forward to examine the paperwork, and my blood ran cold. Under the section for household income, Amanda had listed her boutique salary of $32,000 annually, but then added an additional line, financial support from dependent brother Cornelius, $48,000 annually. The application included a notarized statement claiming that I lived in her basement and contributed most of my income to the household because I was unable to manage my own finances due to cognitive challenges and substance abuse issues. She got the loan. I asked, though I already knew the answer from Jake's expression. Approved within a week, but it gets worse. He pulled out another set of documents. She used the same story to refinance her mortgage 6 months ago, claiming you as a dependent to qualify for assistance programs. And look at this. The next document was a credit application for a department store card where Amanda had forged my signature as a co-applicant. In the income section, she had listed herself as my legal guardian managing my finances. The fabricated story painted me as a mentally impaired adult who received disability payments that she administered on my behalf. How is this legal? I demanded. Jake's face was grim. It's not. This constitutes fraud on multiple levels. But there's more. He handed me a printout from the bank's internal system. This shows attempted withdrawals from your business accounts. She tried to access your funds using a power of attorney document that our legal department flagged as suspicious. The forged power of attorney was a masterpiece of deception. It claimed that I had granted Amanda complete financial authority due to a gambling addiction that had resulted in significant cognitive impairment and inability to make sound financial decisions. The document was notarized, though I had never seen it before in my life. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. He nodded, leaning back in his leather chair. How long has this been going on? Jake pulled out his computer keyboard and typed rapidly. Based on what I can see in our system, the first suspicious application was filed 14 months ago. But Neil? I think this goes back much further than that. He turned his monitor so I could see the screen. Look at these notation entries. The bank's internal notes showed a pattern of inquiries about my accounts dating back 3 years. Amanda had visited the bank multiple times claiming to be concerned about my financial management and asking about procedures for gaining access to someone's accounts due to mental health issues. Each visit was logged by different tellers, suggesting she was deliberately rotating her inquiries to avoid raising suspicions. There's something else, Jake continued. Last month, Amanda brought in documentation claiming you had been diagnosed with early onset dementia and that she needed emergency access to your accounts to pay for your care. Our legal department required additional verification, which is why the request was denied, but she kept pushing. My hands clenched into fists. She told people I had dementia. According to her story, you were becoming increasingly confused and had been making dangerous financial decisions. She provided what appeared to be medical records showing cognitive decline, memory loss, and recommendations for supervised living. Medical records from where? Jake pulled out another folder. That's where we caught her. Our fraud investigation team noticed the documents were formatted incorrectly for the clinic they supposedly came from. When we contacted the medical office directly, they confirmed they had never treated anyone named Cornelius Mitchell, and their letterhead had been copied without authorization. The scope of Amanda's deception was staggering. She hadn't just been collecting sympathy and small donations from church friends and social media connections. She had been systematically building a case to gain complete control over my financial life, using forged medical documents and fabricated stories of mental illness to justify taking everything I had worked to build. There's one more thing, Neil, and this one really bothers me. Jake's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. 2 weeks ago, Amanda came in with your mother. Patricia signed a statement corroborating the story about your mental health decline. She claimed to be worried about your ability to live independently and asked about procedures for emergency guardianship. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. My own mother had participated in this elaborate scheme to destroy my life and steal my assets. The woman who had raised me, who had taught me the importance of honesty and integrity, had signed legal documents containing lies designed to strip away my autonomy and independence. What happens now? I asked. Jake closed the folders and looked directly at me. Now we call the police. What Amanda has done constitutes identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The fact that she involved your mother makes this even more serious. But Neil, I have to warn you about something. What? Based on the pattern of her activities and the sophistication of these forged documents, I don't think Amanda was working alone. Someone helped her create this paperwork, someone with access to medical forms and legal templates. You might be looking at a much bigger conspiracy than you realize. As I left the bank that morning, I realized that yesterday's financial cancellations were just the opening move in what would become a much larger battle. Amanda wasn't just a sister who had taken advantage of my generosity. She was a criminal who had spent years plotting to systematically destroy my life and steal everything I had built, and somehow our mother was helping her do it. That evening, I was sitting in my downtown loft reviewing the documents Jake had given me when my phone chimed with an incoming voicemail. The caller ID showed Mom's number, but when I played the message, I realized immediately that this was not intended for me. Patricia had accidentally pressed my contact instead of Amanda's, and what I heard in the next 4 minutes and 37 seconds changed everything. Amanda, honey, it's Mom. I just got off the phone with that lawyer we consulted last month, and he says everything is going perfectly according to plan. Patricia's voice sounded excited, almost giddy. He reviewed all the documentation we've been building, and he thinks we can have Cornelius declared incompetent within 60 days if he starts showing any erratic behavior. My hands went cold as I listened to my mother's voice, barely recognizable in its calculating tone. The lawyer says the key is to keep documenting everything that makes him look unstable. Those bank records showing him removing his support from you and the girls on Christmas morning are perfect evidence of irrational decision-making. We just need to push him a little more until he has some kind of breakdown we can record. There was a pause, and I could hear Patricia moving around, probably pacing in her kitchen the way she always did when she was scheming. I've been thinking about what you said regarding the inheritance money from Dad's life insurance. You're absolutely right that Cornelius would waste it all if he got his hands on it. Daddy worked too hard for that money to see it thrown away on whatever fantasy business ideas Neil comes up with next. Much better that it stays in your hands where it can actually help the family. My father's life insurance money. The policy that was supposed to be split equally between Amanda and me according to his will. The $200,000 that Amanda claimed had been entirely consumed by funeral expenses and medical bills. She had been lying about that too. The church people have been so generous since I started telling them about Neil's problems, Patricia continued. Sister Margaret brought over another casserole yesterday and slipped me $200 to help with his gambling debts. I almost felt bad taking it, but then I remembered we're doing God's work by protecting him from himself. She laughed, actually laughed, and the sound made my stomach turn. That neighbor of yours? What's his name, Harold? He asked me some pointed questions last week about Neil's condition. I think he's getting suspicious. We might need to be more careful about what we say around him. Maybe suggest he's getting senile himself if he starts spreading rumors. The recording continued with Patricia describing their elaborate plan in detail. They had been consulting with a lawyer for months, building a case to have me declared mentally incompetent and Amanda appointed as my legal guardian. Every story about gambling addiction, every forged document claiming cognitive decline, every sympathetic social media post had been part of a coordinated effort to create a legal foundation for taking control of my life. The best part is that once we get guardianship, we can sell his business and that fancy loft and move him into one of those assisted living places, Patricia said. He'll be safe and supervised, and Amanda can use the money to properly raise those girls and maybe find herself a decent husband. It's really what's best for everyone. But the worst revelation was still coming. I do feel a tiny bit guilty about the Christmas morning plan, Patricia admitted. Making him stand outside in the cold with those presents was harsh even for us. But the lawyer said we needed to provoke some kind of emotional reaction that we could document. We were supposed to record him getting angry or breaking down something we could use in court to show he's unstable. I never expected him to just smile and walk away like that. That boy always was too calm for his own good. The entire Christmas morning rejection had been a setup. They had planned to humiliate me to push me until I reacted badly, then use my emotional response as evidence that I was mentally unstable. The lawyer had coached them on how to create situations that would make me look unbalanced or dangerous. Thank goodness you took pictures of him leaving those presents on the porch, Patricia said. We can spin that as evidence of his erratic behavior, showing up uninvited with inappropriate gifts, and then abandoning them when he didn't get the reaction he wanted. The lawyer says judges love this kind of documentation. They had photographed everything, building a case file of manufactured evidence to support their claims that I was mentally unfit to manage my own life. Every interaction, every conversation, every gesture was being evaluated for its potential use in destroying me. I know you're worried about the girls finding out the truth someday, Patricia concluded, but children are resilient. Once we have everything settled and Neil is properly cared for, they'll understand we did what was best for the family. They might even thank us for protecting them from his influence. The voicemail ended with Patricia promising to call Amanda back after she finished reviewing more legal documents. I sat in the silence of my loft staring at my phone and trying to process what I had just heard. My mother and sister hadn't just been taking advantage of my generosity. They had been systematically plotting to have me declared mentally incompetent, steal my business and assets, and lock me away in an institution based on a web of lies they had been constructing for over a year. Every family gathering where they had seemed dismissive or uncomfortable suddenly made sense. They hadn't been embarrassed by my presence. They had been studying me, looking for weaknesses they could exploit, gathering material for their legal case. Every time Amanda had suggested I was working too hard, or seemed stressed every time Patricia had made comments about me needing to settle down and be more responsible, they had been building a narrative that would support their claims of mental instability. I immediately called my phone service provider and requested a digital copy of the voicemail along with verification of its authenticity and origin. Then I called Jake at home knowing he would want to hear this immediately. Finally, I called the one person I trusted completely in this mess. My attorney, Sarah Chen, who had handled the incorporation of my business 3 years earlier. Sarah agreed to meet me at her office within the hour, despite it being a holiday evening. As I drove through the empty streets toward her downtown law firm, I realized that Amanda and Patricia's elaborate scheme was about to collapse in ways they never could have imagined. Their own words recorded in Patricia's voice and accidentally sent to their intended victim would become the evidence that destroyed them. The predators had just become the prey, and they had no idea the trap was closing around them. Sarah's law office occupied the top floor of a converted brick building downtown, with large windows that overlooked the city's modest skyline. Even at 8 o'clock on Christmas evening, she had arrived within 30 minutes of my call, wearing jeans and a sweater, but carrying the same leather briefcase that had impressed me during our business meetings. Sarah was 35, sharp as a razor, and had built her reputation handling complex fraud cases that other attorneys avoided. "Play it again," she said after listening to Patricia's accidental voicemail for the second time. She was taking notes on a yellow legal pad, occasionally pausing to replay specific sections. "This is absolutely extraordinary, Cornelius. In 20 years of practicing law, I've never seen perpetrators document their own conspiracy this thoroughly." She pulled out her laptop and began typing rapidly. "The legal implications here are staggering. We're looking at elder abuse conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, forgery, filing false police reports, insurance fraud, and attempted guardianship fraud. Your mother and sister have essentially confessed to felony-level crimes. What's our next move?" Sarah leaned back in her chair, studying her notes. "First, we need to understand something important. You have more legal power in this situation than you realize." She pulled out a thick folder from her filing cabinet. "When you asked me to incorporate your business 3 years ago, I also prepared some additional documents at your request. Do you remember signing papers related to your mother's financial affairs? I vaguely recalled signing several documents during that meeting, trusting Sarah's expertise without reading every detail. Something about powers of attorney." "Exactly. You granted me permission to prepare reciprocal financial powers of attorney between you and Patricia, ostensibly to help each other in case of emergency. But here's what your mother doesn't know. The document she signed gives you the legal authority to access her financial records and make decisions on her behalf if she demonstrates impaired judgment." Sarah pulled out the signed paperwork, Patricia's signature clearly visible at the bottom. "According to Virginia state law, financial abuse of adult children constitutes evidence of impaired judgment that can trigger these emergency provisions. Your mother's own voicemail confession provides grounds for you to assume temporary financial guardianship over her affairs." My head was spinning. "You mean I can take control of Mom's finances?" "Not only can you, but given the evidence of her participation in systematic fraud, you probably should. The court will want to see that you've taken steps to prevent further financial crimes." Sarah opened another file. "There's more. Jake sent over Amanda's loan applications and the forged documents. Combined with your mother's recorded confession, we have grounds for emergency intervention regarding your niece's welfare." "What do you mean?" Sarah's expression grew serious. "Cornelius, your sister has been perpetrating fraud while serving as the primary caregiver for 2 minor children. She's been collecting donations under false pretenses, forging legal documents, and involving the children in her deceptions. Child Protective Services will need to evaluate whether the girls are safe in that environment." The thought of involving CPS terrified me, but Sarah continued before I could object. "Here's the thing, you're their closest biological relative. You have a stable income and living situation, and you've been financially supporting them for years. If the courts determine that Amanda's home environment is unstable due to criminal activity, you would be the primary candidate for emergency custody." She pulled out her phone and began making calls. "I'm contacting the Fraud Investigation Unit at the County Sheriff's Office." They'll want to move quickly on this, especially with the recorded confession. Financial crimes against family members are taken very seriously in this jurisdiction. While Sarah spoke with investigators, I stared out the window at the Christmas lights decorating the street below. 24 hours ago, I had been the family outsider, barely tolerated at holiday gatherings, and treated like a burden despite my financial contributions. Now I was potentially about to become the legal guardian of my mother's finances and possibly my niece's primary caretaker. Sarah finished her calls and turned back to me. Detective Williams from the Financial Crimes Unit will meet us here tomorrow morning at 9. He wants to review all the evidence and discuss filing criminal charges, but Cornelius, I need you to understand what this means. Tell me. Once we file these charges, there's no going back. Your mother will likely face felony prosecution. Amanda could go to prison and lose custody of her daughters. Your family relationships will be permanently altered. Sarah leaned forward. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the years of manipulation, the forged documents, the systematic lies told to churches and neighbors and banks. I thought about my father's insurance money that Amanda had stolen and the elaborate plan to have me declared incompetent and institutionalized. Most of all, I thought about my nieces growing up in an environment where fraud and deception were considered acceptable ways to solve problems. What happens to the girls during all this emergency placement with you assuming the court approves? They'll stay in their same school district, maintain their routines, but live in a stable environment while their mother faces the consequences of her actions. Sarah paused. It's actually the best possible outcome for them, even if it's painful in the short term. She pulled out another set of documents. There's one more thing we need to discuss. The insurance money Amanda stole from your father's policy. We can recover that with interest and penalties. Combined with restitution for the fraudulent loans she obtained using your name, we're looking at a substantial financial recovery. How substantial? Sarah did quick calculations on her notepad. Conservative estimate $350,000 plus attorney fees. Amanda will likely have to liquidate assets to pay restitution, which means selling the house and cars you've been supporting. The irony was perfect. Amanda's greed had led her to attempt stealing hundreds of thousands from me, but her own crimes would ultimately cost her everything she had built with my support. She would lose her house, her financial security, her reputation, and possibly her freedom, all because she couldn't be satisfied with the generous help I had been providing for years. There's one final consideration, Sarah said. The emotional impact on your nieces. They're going to learn some very difficult truths about their mother and grandmother. You'll need to help them process this in a way that doesn't destroy their sense of family entirely. I nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility I was about to accept. What do we do first? Sarah smiled for the first time that evening. First, we make sure Amanda and Patricia can't destroy any evidence or transfer assets before the investigation begins. I'm filing for emergency restraining orders tonight. By tomorrow morning, they won't be able to access any accounts, sell any property, or contact any of the people they've been defrauding. As I left Sarah's office that night, I realized that Amanda's Christmas morning rejection had been the catalyst for everything that was about to unfold. Her plan to humiliate me and document my emotional breakdown had instead triggered a series of discoveries that would ultimately expose years of criminal activity. By trying to destroy me, she had handed me the tools to save myself and potentially rescue my nieces from a toxic environment built on lies and manipulation. Justice was finally within reach, and it was going to be served with the same systematic precision that Amanda had used to plan my destruction. 24 hours after Amanda had slammed her door in my face, I stood on her front porch again. This time, I wasn't alone. Detective Williams flanked my right side, his badge visible beneath his winter coat. Child Protective Services caseworker Maria Santos stood to my left, carrying an official folder and wearing the calm expression of someone accustomed to difficult family interventions. Behind us, Sarah approached from her car with a briefcase full of court documents and evidence that would reshape multiple lives in the next hour. Through Amanda's front windows, I could see the aftermath of her failed Christmas dinner party. Extended family members who had traveled from 3 states away to celebrate the holiday were scattered around her living room, their conversations animated and confused. Aunt Helen's distinctive laugh carried through the glass, along with Uncle Robert's booming voice asking someone about football scores. None of them had any idea they were about to witness the collapse of everything they believed about our family dynamics. Detective Williams rang the doorbell with the confidence of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. The sound echoed through the house, followed by Amanda's voice, calling out that she was coming. When the door opened, her face shifted through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise at seeing me again, confusion at the strangers beside me, and finally dawning terror as she noticed Detective Williams's badge. Amanda Mitchell. Detective Williams asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, but I don't understand what this is about. Ma'am, I'm Detective Williams with the County Financial Crimes Unit. We have several warrants we need to discuss with you. He handed her an official document while Maria Santos stepped forward. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Maria Santos with Child Protective Services. We need to conduct an immediate welfare check regarding your daughters and discuss their temporary placement while these legal matters are resolved. The color drained from Amanda's face. Temporary placement. What are you talking about? My children are fine. Cornelius, what did you do? Before I could respond, Sarah moved past us into the house. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Sarah Chen representing your brother in several legal matters. These officers need to speak with you and your mother immediately about fraudulent financial activities and conspiracy charges. The extended family members in the living room had gone silent, sensing the gravity of what was unfolding. Aunt Helen stood near the fireplace with her mouth open, while Uncle Robert set down his beer and moved protectively toward the twins who were playing with their Christmas toys on the carpet. Patricia appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel and looking irritated. What is all this commotion about? We're trying to have a nice family dinner. Detective Williams addressed both women simultaneously. Mrs. Patricia Mitchell and Ms. Amanda Mitchell, you're both being investigated for multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. We have substantial evidence of criminal activity, including recorded confessions and forged documents. Patricia's dish towel dropped to the floor. Recorded confessions? I never confessed to anything. Sarah pulled out her phone. Mrs. Mitchell, yesterday evening at approximately 6:15, you left a voicemail message on your son's phone detailing your conspiracy to have him declared mentally incompetent and steal his assets. Would you like to hear a portion of that recording? That's impossible. I called Amanda, not Cornelius. You pressed the wrong contact in your phone, Sarah explained. The entire 4-minute confession was accidentally sent to the intended victim of your crimes. Amanda grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, what is she talking about? What voicemail? Sarah pressed play, and Patricia's voice filled the room. Amanda, honey, it's Mom. I just got off the phone with that lawyer we consulted last month, and he says everything is going perfectly according to plan. He reviewed all the documentation we've been building, and he thinks we can have Cornelius declared incompetent within 60 days. The extended family members listened in stunned silence as Patricia's recorded voice described the elaborate scheme to steal my assets, forge medical documents, and have me institutionalized. Aunt Helen sank into a chair while Uncle Robert's face flushed with anger. The twins looked up from their toys, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. When the recording ended, Patricia was trembling. I can explain, we were just trying to help Cornelius, because he obviously can't manage his own life properly. Detective Williams opened his notebook. Ma'am, conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud is a felony. Combined with the forged documents your daughter submitted to multiple financial institutions, you're both facing serious prison time. Maria Santos knelt beside the twins, speaking softly. Girls, my name is Maria, and I work with families to make sure children are safe and happy. We need to talk about staying with your Uncle Neil for a little while. 8-year-old Emma looked up with confusion. Why can't we stay with Mommy? Your mommy needs to take care of some grown-up problems, and Uncle Neil has a really nice place where you can stay comfortable while she works things out. Amanda lunged forward. You cannot take my children. I haven't done anything wrong. Neil is the one with problems. Ask anyone here. Aunt Helen stood up slowly, her voice shaking with anger. Amanda, we just heard your mother's voice describing a criminal conspiracy to steal from your brother and have him committed to a mental institution. How dare you claim he's the one with problems? Uncle Robert approached Amanda with a disgusted expression. We've been wondering for years how you afforded this house and those cars on a boutique salary. Now we know you've been stealing from Neil while telling everyone he was the family burden. The family dynamic was completely inverted in real time. The relatives who had always treated me as the unsuccessful younger brother suddenly understood that I had been financially supporting Amanda's comfortable lifestyle for years. The nephew they had pitied was actually the family's primary breadwinner, while the single mother they had admired was a criminal who had been systematically defrauding banks and community organizations. Detective Williams continued documenting Amanda's assets. Ms. Mitchell, this house? Your vehicles and most of your major purchases were made possible through fraudulent loans obtained using false information about your brother's income and mental state. Those assets will be frozen pending restitution proceedings. Frozen, what does that mean? It means you can't sell anything, transfer ownership, or access most of your accounts until the court determines how much money you owe in restitution and penalties. Sarah handed Amanda another set of documents. These are eviction proceedings. Since the house was purchased with fraudulent loan applications, the bank is initiating foreclosure. You have 30 days to vacate. Amanda sank onto her couch, finally understanding the scope of her situation. But where will we live? What about the girls' school? Maria Santos answered gently. The girls will remain in their current school district while living with their uncle. Their routine will be disrupted as little as possible during this transition. Patricia made one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. This is all a misunderstanding. Cornelius has been having mental health issues for months. The family was just trying to protect him from making bad decisions. Aunt Helen exploded. Patricia, stop lying. We just heard your own voice describing how you've been stealing from your son and planning to have him committed based on forged medical records. How can you possibly think anyone will believe your excuses now? The twins began crying, overwhelmed by the adult conflict they couldn't understand. I knelt beside them, speaking softly. Emma Grace, you're going to come stay with me for a while. I have a big apartment with windows that look out over the whole city, and there's a really cool playground right downstairs. Will we see Mommy? Grace asked through her tears. Of course you will. Mommy just needs to take care of some important things first, but you'll still see her regularly. Detective Williams finished his initial documentation and prepared to escort Amanda and Patricia to the station for formal questioning. Ladies, you need to come with us now. We'll continue this conversation downtown. As they were led away, the extended family members sat in stunned silence, processing everything they had witnessed. Uncle Robert finally spoke up. Neil, I owe you an apology. We all do. We believed Amanda's stories about supporting you, and we never questioned why none of it made sense. Aunt Helen nodded agreement. Honey, we're so sorry. Is there anything we can do to help with the girls? I looked around Amanda's living room, filled with furniture and decorations that my financial support had made possible, now occupied by family members who finally understood the truth about our relationships. Just help me explain to Emma and Grace that sometimes adults make mistakes. But that doesn't mean the people who love them will ever stop caring about them. As Maria Santos helped the twins pack some clothes and favorite toys, I realized that Amanda's plan to destroy me had ultimately saved my nieces from growing up in an environment where fraud and manipulation were considered normal problem-solving techniques. Her greed and criminal behavior had led to her own downfall, but it had also created an opportunity for Emma and Grace to experience genuine stability and unconditional love. The predator had finally been caught, and her intended victims were free. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my expanded downtown loft, helping Emma and Grace pack their school lunches while morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The girls had adapted to their new routine with the resilience that children possess, and their laughter echoed through the space that had once seemed too large for one person, but now felt perfectly sized for a small family. "Dad, Neil, can you help me with this thermos?" Grace asked, struggling with the cap on her soup container. Somewhere during the 3rd month of their stay, both girls had started calling me Dad Neil, a combination that honored their relationship with their biological mother while acknowledging the paternal role I had assumed in their daily lives. Emma was carefully arranging her sandwich and apple in her lunchbox, already demonstrating the attention to detail and organizational skills that would serve her well in life. "Are we still going to see Mommy this weekend?" she asked without looking up. "Yes, we'll visit her Saturday afternoon just like always." I had maintained consistent visitation between the girls and Amanda, despite everything that had happened. Children needed to understand that their mother was dealing with consequences for bad choices, not that she was inherently evil or unworthy of love. The legal proceedings had concluded 2 weeks earlier with Amanda accepting a plea agreement that included 18 months in minimum security prison, 5 years of probation, and complete financial restitution, totaling $412,000. Patricia had received a suspended sentence due to her age and health issues, but was required to pay substantial fines and perform 200 hours of community service at the same homeless shelter where I volunteered. More importantly, both women were required to attend extensive counseling to address the psychological patterns that had led to their criminal behavior. Amanda's therapist had diagnosed her with narcissistic personality traits and financial anxiety disorder stemming from her abandonment by Derek years earlier. Patricia was dealing with control issues and fear of financial insecurity that had developed after my father's death. "Uncle Neil," Emma said, using her original name for me when she wanted to have a serious conversation, "why did Mommy do those bad things to you when you were always nice to our family?" I sat down at the breakfast table knowing this conversation required careful attention. Sometimes when people feel scared or worried about money, they make choices that hurt the people who love them most. "Your mommy was afraid she couldn't take care of you and Grace properly, so she convinced herself that taking money from me was okay because family should help each other." "But you were already helping," Grace pointed out with the logical clarity of an 8-year-old. "You're absolutely right. The problem was that your mommy wanted to control everything instead of just accepting help. She got confused about the difference between accepting support and stealing support." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Dr. Susan says that some grown-ups never learned how to ask for help the right way, so they try to take it instead." Dr. Susan was the family therapist who had been working with all of us to process the dramatic changes in our relationships. She had helped the girls understand that their mother's actions were about Amanda's problems, not about anything they had done wrong. More importantly, she had helped me navigate the challenge of providing stability while not completely vilifying their mother. "Dad Neil," Grace said, "I'm glad we live with you now. Our old house always felt like Mommy was worried about something, but here it feels safe." The transformation in both girls had been remarkable. Their grades had improved dramatically once they were free from the constant tension of living in a household built on deception and financial anxiety. Emma had joined the school's math club and was already talking about becoming an engineer. Grace had discovered a talent for creative writing and spent hours crafting stories about brave children who helped their families solve problems through honesty and cooperation. My phone buzzed with a text message from Amanda. Neil, I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but could we add 30 minutes to Saturday's visit? I have something important I want to tell the girls. I had been surprised by Amanda's transformation during her incarceration. The combination of therapy consequences for her actions and separation from Patricia's influence had forced her to confront the reality of what she had done to our family. Her letters to me had evolved from angry blame and excuses to genuine remorse and acceptance of responsibility. I texted back, "Of course, is everything okay?" "Better than okay. I got accepted into the accounting program at the community college. When I get out, I want to build an honest life and earn the right to be a proper mother to my daughters." The girls finished packing their lunches and gathering their school supplies, chattering about a science project they were working on together. I drove them to school through the downtown streets I had once navigated as a lonely bachelor, now seeing the city through the eyes of someone responsible for nurturing two young lives toward successful adulthood. After dropping them off, I headed to my office where my tech consulting business had grown substantially over the past 6 months. Freed from the financial drain of supporting Amanda's deceptive lifestyle, I had been able to invest in expanding my client base and hiring 2 additional developers. The business that Patricia and Amanda had planned to steal and liquidate was now thriving beyond anything I had previously imagined. Jake called me around noon with an update on the restitution payments. "Neil, the final asset liquidation is complete. After attorney fees and court costs, you'll receive a settlement check for $387,000. What happened to Amanda's house? Sold last week. The new owners are a young couple with twins, actually. Kind of poetic justice that a family will get to make honest memories in that house." That afternoon, I picked up the girls from school and took them to visit Harold, whose friendship had become one of the unexpected gifts of this entire experience. He had moved from being Amanda's neighbor to being surrogate grandfather to Emma and Grace, teaching them about gardening and sharing stories from his 8 decades of life experience. "How are my favorite troublemakers today?" Harold asked as the girls ran into his backyard to check on the vegetable garden they had planted together. "They're doing amazingly well," I told him. "Sometimes I think children are more resilient than adults when it comes to adapting to new realities." Harold nodded, watching Emma show Grace how to properly water the tomato plants. "Children thrive on consistency and honesty, 2 things they weren't getting in their previous situation. You've given them both, plus genuine, unconditional love." Saturday's visit with Amanda took place in the family meeting room at the correctional facility, a space designed to feel more comfortable than a typical prison visiting area. Amanda looked healthier than I had seen her in years, with clear eyes and a calm demeanor that suggested her therapy was having genuine positive effects. "Girls, I have something very important to tell you," she began after hugging both daughters and asking about school and their friends. "I want you to know that everything that happened to our family was because Mommy made bad choices, not because of anything you did or anything Uncle Neil did." Emma and Grace listened seriously as Amanda explained in age-appropriate language that she had been lying to people about money and had tried to take things that didn't belong to her. She apologized for creating a home environment where they had to worry about adult problems and praised them for being brave during a difficult transition. "Will you come live with us again when you get out of jail?" Grace asked. Amanda looked at me before answering. "Sweetie, that decision will be up to Uncle Neil and the courts. I need to prove that I've learned how to be honest and responsible before anyone should trust me to take care of you properly again." After the visit, as we drove home through the early evening traffic, Emma asked the question I had been anticipating for months. "Dad, Neil, do you think Mommy will be able to be a good mother when she gets out of prison?" I chose my words carefully. "I think your mommy is working very hard to become the person she always had the potential to be. Whether that means living together again or just having a different kind of relationship will depend on how well she does with her counseling and proving that she can make good choices consistently." "Either way, we'll still be a family," Grace said confidently. "It will just be a different kind of family than other people have." That evening, after homework was complete and the girls were settled with bedtime stories, I sat in my living room reviewing college savings account statements for Emma and Grace. The restitution money would ensure they could attend any university they chose without worrying about student loans. More importantly, they would grow up understanding that financial security comes from honest work and smart choices, not from manipulating or stealing from others. My phone rang and I was surprised to see Patricia's number. We hadn't spoken directly since the day of her arrest, though I received occasional updates about her community service progress through Sarah. Cornelius, it's Mom. I know I don't have the right to call you, but I wanted to tell you something important. Her voice sounded different, smaller somehow, without the confident manipulation that had characterized our interactions for years. I finished my community service yesterday, and I wanted to tell you that working at the homeless shelter has taught me things I should have learned decades ago. I've been serving meals to people who lost everything because of bad choices or circumstances beyond their control, and I realized that's exactly what I almost did to you. She paused and I could hear her struggling with emotions. I want to apologize not just for what Amanda and I did, but for all the years before that, when I made you feel like you weren't good enough or successful enough or responsible enough. The truth is that you were the most responsible person in our family, and instead of being proud of you, I was threatened by your independence. Mom, I appreciate you saying that. I also want you to know that I've been attending counseling through the senior center, and I'm learning about boundaries and healthy relationships. I don't expect you to forgive me or want a relationship with me, but I hope someday you might be willing to let me try to be a proper grandmother to those girls. After we hung up, I realized that Amanda's plan to destroy me had ultimately saved our entire family from a toxic dynamic that had been poisoning our relationships for years. The girls were growing up in an environment based on honesty and genuine support. Amanda was getting the help she needed to address her psychological issues. Patricia was confronting the control issues that had led her to participate in fraud rather than admit her son was successful. As I turned off the lights and checked on Emma and Grace one final time before bed, I reflected on the life lesson that had emerged from this experience. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family members who are harming themselves and others is to let them face the consequences of their choices, even when those consequences are painful. True family love means creating an environment where everyone can grow into their best selves, not enabling destructive behavior in the name of keeping peace. The girls would grow up understanding that love includes accountability, that support comes with respect, and that healthy relationships require honesty from everyone involved. Amanda's attempt to manipulate and control had ultimately freed all of us to build genuine connections based on truth rather than deception. Her Christmas morning rejection had been the catalyst that saved our family from itself. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where family members took advantage of your generosity while making you feel like the problem? How did you handle it? And what did you learn about setting boundaries with people you love? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with anyone who might benefit from understanding that sometimes saying no to manipulation is the most loving choice you can make. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family drama and building healthier relationships. Thank you for listening to this journey of betrayal, justice, and ultimately redemption. Remember that every family story has the potential for a happy ending when truth and accountability replace deception and enabling. May your own family relationships be built on foundations of honesty, mutual respect, and genuine love that doesn't require anyone to sacrifice their dignity or financial security to maintain peace.